All right. It says we are going. It says we are going. I hope that's clear enough. I don't know. It looks kind of blurry to me, but I could be crazy. Ha ha ha. Hey, let me get this thing going. Whatever. I lost it. I missed it. But I could have kept going, but you're not here to listen to me practice. Hey, good morning, and welcome to yet another episode of Red Stone Lapis Lazuli, your weekly breakdown of what's going on in the United States and Minecraft. Back. So let's see if this is gonna make it. It looks good. Oh no, it's looking bad. Yeah, it crashed. Okay, let's try again. Let's try again. I mean, I could play in a window, but then I'm in a window, and then your screen here would not look quite right. I guess I could like expand it so that the black borders would be invisible. It'll reach to the end of the screen. Oh, look at that. Even like my deal here isn't perfect. Well, it's good enough. All right. Good enough. That's the key. Good enough. So yeah, good morning. Here we're going to try this again. Again. All right. Hey, so what have I been doing? As you know, or maybe you don't, but way up over there, that is the mob spawner and the zombie, and a system where I can separate out the zombie villagers from the truly bad zombies. That way I have a supply of villagers, because I'm not stealing them, I'm not kidnapping them, I'm not like breeding them for stock. I'm literally rescuing them. And then I built them a house. And some of them have two people living in the house. Yeah, and then the workstation is inside the house. That way, they don't need to travel to the office. They work from home. And yeah, let's see. I still have to build these two guys a house, but I was gathering materials. I think I was gonna go up here and work on that. Maybe make a little house like on this corner here, or something. But like, and then these trees, you know, gotta go. But I can probably plant them somewhere else. And then, yeah, on the other side of the hill is like another area I could deforest, essentially. maybe replace it after I do it. I don't know. And then you have this massive beach. So like, I have plenty of room to grow my village, to literally grow a village without enslaving, without breeding, without kidnapping. It can be done. Ah! So yeah. I even got a little bridge going here. And then I play so much, I don't know anymore what I did since the last episode. I built a train line directly to my basement, but I don't use it very often for some reason. Alright, and then we have the system. The system. So, yeah. I use the system to farm experience points. I can also farm a bunch of other great material, like gunpowder. Lots of gunpowder. Why so much gunpowder? For the rockets that I'll eventually have. For the elytra. Okay, and then you get a surprisingly good number of witches in here, which drop a lot of redstone, so that's great. Then you got the bones. Bones I turn into bone meal, or I can store them in bone blocks. But it's pretty like labor intensive. So I'm wondering if I should build an auto crafter. That's the new block, the new redstone in the new version 1.21, and it could save me the labor of having to like take out the bones, break them into bone meal, then recombine them into a bone block. Like if my end goal is this, then there's easier ways of doing it, and I might do that. Okay, as you can see, just monsters just fall endlessly out of there. I increased the size of it, so there's now 5 layers upon which monsters can spawn up there. And in that box, that's tinted glass, so no light actually penetrates. So inside of there, it's dark. And that's the only place they can spawn. Monsters can spawn. They can't spawn down there. We're pretty far away, and everything else is lit up. They can't spawn in the air. There's nowhere for them to spawn, except in my box, which, you know, then funnels them into the kill chamber. But suppose I'm in this. I mean, the vast majority of these creatures are irredeemable. They're just bad, right? They're better off dead. Well, I mean, are they even alive, right? So, skeletons? Come on, they're undead skeletons. They're zombies. They're literally undead. But every once in a while, you'll come across a villager who's sick. And he acts like a zombie. But they have a property about them in which they can be saved. Saved! So I have a system by which I can, like, isolate by closing those doors up there. I can isolate the one I want, and then on this side is a turtle egg, and then I press this button to open the door. The zombie will be attracted to the turtle egg to kill it. They want to kill the turtle egg, the innocent turtle egg. They want to smash it. So we can exploit that logic. I can exploit that logic by utilizing these 2 trap doors. To us, we see, oh, that's not really there. That's not actually there. That's an illusion. We understand, you and I, that this is an illusion. But to the zombie, who only wants to do hateful, harmful things, they can't see that. They think these 2 things are connected, are real, even though they're not. So they act as if it is real to them. So they see a solid line, a solid block, straight to the turtle egg. Whereas we see it's a trap. They're going to fall in. Which they do every time. And then they fall into a pool of water, which funnels them into a corner. Like, it's just inevitable. It's inevitable. They can jump around for a little bit, but even after a while, they'll just stop jumping, and then they'll be put into position, into this corner. And then Minecraft has a strange property whereby you can send a minecart through a glass block because it's not really a solid block. And that picks up the villager warps from in there into the minecart and then gets put into the conversion center, where I splash them with a potion of weakness, and then I feed them knowledge in the form of golden apple. I've taken on a villager apprentice. I've taken on an apprentice. This is a brewer, and this apprentice is ravenous for rotten flesh. They'll trade me all the emeralds for rotten flesh. So that I just so happened to like make a lot of rotten flesh by killing all those zombies. So it works out. It works out. Everything works out. So I convert the villager once I isolate them and put them over here by weakening them and then feeding them knowledge. And then you let them chew on that for like a good while. Let them absorb the what happened and what the thing that they've generated in their minds, which is knowledge. They have to assimilate it, incorporate it into themselves, internalize it, I guess you could say. And then once they do, they're like, "Oh, I'm a villager now," and then I can send them off down to the village. And that way, I've rescued a guy, I converted a guy, and then I housed the guy. No coercion, no slavery. So in other other builds, other things you can make. Sure, you could kidnap a villager. You can just kidnap them and then make them have babies and then steal their babies. You could do that in Minecraft, sure. You can do it. It's a sandbox, right? You could keep the villagers trapped in a 1x1x2 cell where they can't, with no bed, so they can't ever sleep, they can never rest, and they always have to work. You could do that, sure. But you don't have to. So, in this way, by building them houses, I can get the benefit of a really like specialized village without any of the karmic badness. It's like a meta game, right? It's a meta game. It's a meta game. Meta game. So yeah, these two are paired up, and they all work from home, so it makes it really easy. These two are paired up. They sleep in separate beds. Hey, let me tell you. I would be like a miserable person to sleep with. No, like literally sleep, because I am constantly moving and trying to adjust and trying to like breathe. I probably need a CPAP machine, but you know. Anyways, separate sleeping areas is like fantastic. It's a great idea. I don't know how yeah. There's like no way. And whenever someone sleeps next to me, I like can't rest because I'm conscious of them the entire time. Like yeah. Anyways, all right. So so the village is coming along. I'm kind of slow, right? These two guys are sleeping outside. They're homeless. But I'm working on it. I'm working on creating housing. Trying to expand. I worked the land here to make it more flat and make it easier to build houses. And then I had to spend time to go out and light up all the territory so that no monsters would spawn and kill my villagers. And I'm gonna make this an island eventually. It's an isthmus, but I can make it an island, a peninsula. It's a peninsula, but I can like just like cut this off. I mean, basically, it's not really cutting off; it's rejoining the ocean with the river. So this will be a separate island. Yay! So that way the monsters won't come in and wreck things. So yeah, it has been quite a week. So 2 weeks ago, was it 2 weeks ago or last week? I don't even know. Donald Trump was involved in an attempted assassination. I think it was 2 weeks ago. The perpetrator of the attempted assassination was a guy named Thomas Matthew Crooks, who was registered as a Republican and whose neighbors have reported he kept outside his house Trump signs. Maybe he was just a young, confused, angry man who wanted to go out as a famous person by, you know, and did research, because on his phone they found pictures of all sorts of officials, government officials, all sorts, from both spectrums, from both sides of the spectrum, not just one. It just so happened that the president would be in his, like, near his location, I think. At any rate, this guy fired off shots, and he did not hit. Okay, so it's contested, right? It's contested. Did the bullet hit Donald Trump? Did the bullet hit Donald Trump's ears? Because yeah, there was blood. I saw blood. But I don't know if that was from the bullet hitting his ear or his skull or like behind the ear. Like, so I'm like, all right, well, let's just wait for the medical report. Well, Donald Trump doesn't release medical reports. You're not going to know because Donald Trump doesn't release medical reports. This is a creeper hole. So maybe Donald Trump got shot. Maybe he got hit by a piece of shrapnel. In fact, FBI Director Christopher Wray, I questioned whether or not Donald Trump got hit by a bullet because there was no medical report on it. Ronnie Jackson put out a letter saying that Donald Trump got hit by a bullet, but Ronnie Jackson isn't a doctor. He's Trump's former doctor. He lost his license. How does he know? He's not the treating physician. No, yeah, there was no report released, medical report released about any injury that happened to Donald Trump. So, but on the 26th, that's 2 days ago. So that would be about 2 weeks since Donald Trump has been alleging that he was shot, that he was hit by a bullet. That's what he's alleging. But there was a meeting that Donald Trump had with Benjamin Netanyahu in Mar-a-Lago, and there was a picture taken. And I don't know. When I look at it, it doesn't look like when I expect a bullet to hit something, bullets travel really, really, really fast. That means they have a lot of energy in them. So if it even touches anything, that thing is gonna feel it. So once upon a time, I did something stupid. I had a car full of some girls in my car, so I was just being dumb. And I'm like, I'm just gonna drive by and touch a cone or something. That's whatever, just because I can or whatever. And then so it was dumb, right? But I was young and trying to impress girls. It was so dumb. It was so dumb. And I succeeded, right? Going about 35 miles an hour. I managed to touch one of the construction cones. But when I did, it went smack. And even though I barely touched it, I'm like, ah! it like hurt real bad. And everyone laughed at me and called me stupid. So yeah, think of a bullet. If I'm only going 35 miles an hour, and my hand and a plastic cone meet, and it hurts pretty bad. Imagine you're a bullet, like a piece of metal, of hot metal, tumbling at like 1,000 miles an hour. I don't know how fast they go. Hundreds of miles an hour. Hundreds of miles an hour. And it barely nicks your ear. Barely touches your ear. Even if it barely touches it, it's gonna go. There's a lot. It imparts a lot of energy. If me going 35 miles an hour and touching a construction cone, like hurts like a bitch. Like, I couldn't imagine if I was going 100 and something miles an hour and tried to touch a construction cone with my hand. It'd tear my arm off. So I fully expect there to be some kind of damage if Donald Trump were actually, in fact, hit by a bullet. It would have imparted a ridiculous amount of energy if it even touched him. If it even touched him. But look, it looks fine to me. But you know, maybe that's just one picture. Maybe that's just one funny picture. Well, you can keep going, right? There's another one. Do you see anything in there? Looks pretty like untouched to me. And then we got another picture of his ear recently. Doesn't look like anything's there. That's from the Associated Press. This was taken like about 2 weeks ago, like today or yesterday. Associated Press again. Do you see any part that got touched by a bullet? So I think Donald Trump is playing it up. He was playing it up. They fully believed they were going to win the election after a white male Republican tried to assassinate Donald Trump. They wanted to Donald Trump got his silly little pose. And that's funny. You know what? He got the same opportunity to make a silly little pose at the police station. When he got arrested in Georgia and had to give his mugshot, do you notice how he didn't actually give a mugshot? He gave like a glamour shot. He gave a glamour shot. He got to position his head a certain way. He got to have his hair a certain way because he knew he was posing for merch. Just like he knew he was posing for merch when after there was an assassination attempt, he literally stood up past all his bodyguards to do the raised fist thing. Like, he was fully aware that, oh, I'm not trying to preserve my safety, I'm making merch. I'm posing for merch. So, I don't know, it seems to me there's a lot of law enforcement who are, if not explicitly aligned with Trump, they're implicitly aligned with Trump. You can just look at what Donald Trump has been allowed to get away with. Just look at that. So yeah, the thing is that but in the middle of the week, Donald Trump's attempt to transform the assassination attempt into like a defining moment was upstaged by Biden. Biden bowing out of the race. He faced a lot of criticism and pressure, and it didn't look like he was gonna quit. But I guess they made a deal or something to make sure that Kamala was gonna be the nominee. Like, he wouldn't have done it if there was gonna be anyone else other than Harris. So all of a sudden now Harris is the presumptive nominee, and Donald Trump's whole strategy and time cultivating the negative Biden memes, all that evaporated. It was all targeted on the wrong person. So I think that's kind of funny. And what makes it even funnier is that there seems to have occurred some kind of polarity shift. something happened. I don't know quite how to explain it. I don't know what's going on, right? Because I'm in the middle of it. But for some reason, it seems like things have like utterly flipped around. Now, I haven't watched this show, so I don't know who these people are. So I might be missing a layer of context for this meme. Because I don't know who these people are, and I don't know where they are. It just looks like two people who know each other see each other at a place that neither one of them expected the other to be in. So when you look here, I see it says ACAB crowd choosing a cop prosecutor, and then it's like a look of amazement and shock, looking at seeing like. And maybe like not shocked, but maybe they're like surprised or they're like embarrassed to be found on this side. And then on the other side, there's another guy being like, "Oh my God," and they're saying, "Back the blue crowd choosing a felon." So that's exactly where we're at now. Ah, that's exactly where we're at. So ACAB is all cops are bastards. And Kamala Harris is a cop. Or was a cop. She was a prosecutor. She was a prosecutor for a long time. Right, and it doesn't matter what cop it is, all cops are bastards. Okay. Now, and then, but supposedly the left is associated with liberals. I don't know. According to this meme, they're associating ACAB is a leftist thing, not a liberal thing. That's the thing, and Kamala Harris is not a leftist. Right? If she was Joe Biden's vice president, right, she's a liberal. So it assumes that the leftists are on board with Kamala. And then on the bottom side, the bottom half, right, back the blue. Back the blue is, have you seen that desecration of the American flag where they make it black and white and then they choose one stripe and then turn it to color blue? Have you seen that? Yeah. It's like a defacement of the flag. Right? It's a disrespect of the flag to do that. But there's a whole crowd behind it. Cops love it. And yeah, and they're typically associated with right-wing tendencies and viewpoints. Right? People who back the blue typically tend to be authoritarian, rigid, black and white perception. Yeah, and oftentimes aligned with Donald Trump. How about that? So, yeah, so exactly, that's exactly what it is. The people who supposedly support cops are now lining up behind someone who's literally a convicted felon. So a person who broke the law is their leader. Hey, what's up, Mr. Fizzy or person Fizzy contortion? Fizzy HB contortion. I'm doing my show. This is a different time. This is a different thing. So, yeah, this is where I talk about the United States and what's going on here. Because I don't know if you know, but the United States is in a battle for its soul. Yeah. So the United States is in a battle for its soul. authoritarians, fascists, are trying to take over the government and transform the United States into away from democracy and toward an ethno state. But the other side of and that's the side that's on this crowd, who's the quote quote back the blue, and they're the ones who are supporting Donald Trump, a convicted felon. And then there's the anti-authoritarians, the ones who are they're not anti-authoritarian necessarily, but they're not like authoritarian. They believe in democracy. And they have been patient. They have been waiting a long time because democracy in the United States is a pretty uneven thing. It's not evenly democratic. There are states under the control of ethno-nationalists who have curtailed voting rights and made some places less free than others. But at any rate, they're going to lose. If democracy is enacted, then the authoritarians will lose, because they can't win it. Authoritarian ideas can't win in a democracy. You can't do it. So, yeah, it's being reflected in this upcoming election. And in this election in the United States, the people who are typically authoritarian, who want to get rid of democracy and install ethno-nationalism, they're the ones who are lining up behind Donald Trump, who's an authoritarian, but he's also a criminal. He's convicted of fraud. And he's been convicted in a number of other cases for defamation. He's been found to have engaged in sexual assault. He's a sex criminal. And what makes it funny is that that's the champion of the authoritarians, who say that you have to respect authority. A man who defies authority is the champion of the group that wants other people to respect authority. Do you get it? Do you see why it's hilarious? Well, hey, thanks, Fizzy. Okay. So, what else do I got? So, on the other hand, you have the quote-quote leftists, who are supporting Kamala Harris, which is kind of strange, right? Because Kamala Harris is or was a prosecutor, and prosecutors are a reflection of the authority of the state. And so leftists are typically anti-state. I don't know. I guess a certain branch of leftism is anti-state. Right, because of course you have like the communists. They're the ones who are pro-state and leftists. Are they authoritarian? I don't know. I hope not. I don't think so. Not the real one. Not the real communism. But anyways, yeah, no, you don't want authoritarianism. What was I going to talk? Oh yeah. So that's why this is funny. No, this meme is hilarious. The liberals are backing a cop, and the fascists are backing a criminal. That's what's. It's like both sides are hypocrites. But there's a difference, right? Both sides are not equal, for sure. No, don't fall into the trap of false equivalency. It's not liberals are equal to fascists. No, it's not even that leftists are equal to fascists. No, fascists are uniquely shitty. and Republicans are fascists. So I say that, right? But what does, like, how can I prove that? That's like a huge charge to make, dude. What are you talking about? You're like, woo, this guy is a fascist. Like, how do you fucking know? How do you know that this guy is a fascist? I mean, sure, we could look back and see that he tried to overthrow the government already. I mean, because it's part of a plan that he has, right? So he has this plan. The last time, so Donald Trump wants to do away with democracy, and that's what I'll say. Donald Trump's a fascist because Donald Trump wants to do away with democracy, and have no more votes. Just have, like, you know, the rulers be ruling. Yo, what's up, Puffin? So you say, well, how do you know that that's what he wants? Well, here, listen to him. Listen to his words. Let's see.
And again, Christians, get out and vote.
Hold on. Listen to his words. Listen to what he says. So I'm saying that Donald Trump wants to end democracy in the United States. And you say to me, how do you know that that's what he wants? And I'm going to show you.
Vote just this time. You won't have to do it anymore. 4 more years, you know what? It'll be fixed. It'll be fine. You won't have to vote anymore, my beautiful Christians. I love you, Christians. I'm a Christian. I love you. Get out. You got to get out and vote. In 4 years, you don't have to vote again. We'll have it fixed so good you're not going to have to vote. And again.
So you heard him, right? That's him in regular time. He said, he's like, get out and vote. I want you to get out and vote. In 4 more years, you won't have to vote. We'll fix it. You won't have to vote. Why would he say that? Well, we can assume he means that the vote will be made irrelevant because he wants to overthrow the government. Now you can say to me, well, that's just one time. Maybe you misunderstood him. You could say that, right? All right, you can say, oh yeah, sure, maybe he said it this one time, but maybe you misunderstood it. Well, here, he said it twice. He said it again. Do I have it?
We have lawyers at every poll booth.
Oh wait, no, not that one. Yeah, right here, this one.
Christians go to church, but they don't vote that much. Do you know the power you have if you would vote? It wouldn't even be. So you got to get out and vote. Just this time. I don't care. In 4 years, you don't have to vote, okay? In 4 years, don't vote. I don't care. But we'll have it all straightened out, so it'll be much different.
See?
Of course, then they'll come in again and they'll ruin it.
So he's already telling you. That's twice. 2 times. 2 times he said, in 4 years, you won't have to vote. But this time you do. Because in 4 years, he's going to fix it. He's telling you, dude. He's telling you that he wants to overthrow the government and install fascism. I mean, because that's what happens. When your vote doesn't matter anymore, you've lost democracy. And he wants to get rid of democracy. All right? So it's pretty clear that you can see that Donald Trump represents ideas that are not American. In America, it's all about democracy. Like, that's the number one thing, democracy. So Donald Trump wants to get rid of the thing that we're about. So he's literally an existential threat to the United States. But here's another problem. So as Donald Trump, or when Donald Trump was president, he he installed a number of judges inside the federal government. And these judges are very favorable to Donald Trump and his policies. Donald Trump's values don't align with American values. So if it's good for Donald Trump, it's not good for the rest of us. In general. In general. What was I even talking about? Why am I talking about that? Oh yeah. The Supreme Court of the United States committed a type of coup a little while ago. So Donald Trump was being prosecuted for his role in trying to overthrow the government of the United States. He was being prosecuted for it. However, he made an absurd claim. He claimed that it wasn't illegal what he did because it was an official government a presidential act. So and the president is not subject to the law. That's their argument. What? What do you mean the president is not subject to the law? That's ridiculous. That's absurd. In fact, the Constitution says the exact opposite. It says that all offices are under are subject to the law, including the president is an office. The president isn't a title, or isn't like a, yeah, it's not like a title, I guess. It's literally an office. Because people come and go, but the presidency stays. It's who's holding it. What are they holding? The office of the presidency. And in the Constitution, it says, or it maybe it doesn't say directly, but it says indirectly by saying the opposite. By showing like the other side. It indirectly states that all offices, including the presidency, are subject to the law. So I should pull that up, maybe. I'm talking about it, right? No. Oh man. There we go. Ta-da! Let's read the words, right? Together. So the question was asked by Puffin. Wait, is democracy like where people discriminating people who are different race? I forgot. No. No. Democracy is the form of government whereby the people, the majority of the people, are the ones who hold the power. They're the ones who hold the power. Democracy, and then typically you take a reflection of the people. Like, how do you know what the people want? Well, you have to form a government. And you can have direct democracy where literally everyone inputs their vote or their input into a project to make a decision, or you can do representative democracy, where the people will elect a representative who will go to the government and represent their interests before the government. So instead of like 100,000 people having to go vote on something, you have like one person, and then you pick who that person is via a vote, People like literally vote to choose who's going to represent them. So, in essence, democracy is a way of imparting the power into the people instead of the aristocracy. So it's in contrast. You can contrast it to something like oligarchy, authoritarianism. Like, oligarchy is the idea, authoritarianism is the structure which upholds it. In oligarchy is opposed to democracy, in that whereas democracy spreads the power throughout the people, in oligarchy you concentrate the power. You concentrate the power into the hands of a few people, the elite, and then those people are the ones who make the decisions, with no input from the people. Oh, I killed a guy. Sorry. Yeah, you get no input from the people because you're an authoritarian. You're a tyrant. So things like human rights, where we recognize one another's humanity, and that kind of thing doesn't exist under oligarchy. because concepts like human rights are things that must be enforced and respected by all the people. You have to spread it out throughout all the people, and make people aware, and that puts the power into the hands of the people. By saying that all humans have these basic human rights, that puts the power out of the hands of an individual and into the hands of the whole, the people. In oligarchy, the power is concentrated into the hands of the few, which are usually the very, very wealthy. If you have a lot of power, you tend to be very wealthy. Because that wealth is a reflection of, that material wealth is a reflection of your power. In a oligarchy. And they don't have any use for human rights. Because for them it's all about power. I mean, that's why you concentrate wealth, is to accumulate power. So things like human rights, which are a collective right, human rights are discarded because it's a collective right. And it reverts back to a form of government which has already been tried, which is like authoritarianism, where all the power is invested into the state, and the state is controlled by the very few, and that state is beyond question. You can't question the state. You have no rights. Individuals humans have no rights. They are literally subject to the authority of the state. So not only do people not get to be able to choose the state, but they're still subject to the state no matter what. They're not free, in other words. So democracy is a form in which freedom can exist. It doesn't necessarily exist there, but it can exist. Whereas authoritarianism, expressions of freedom are much more difficult to procure, and it can't be done on a large scale. Or if it is, it's severely punished by the state. I mean, look at China, right? Tiananmen Square. So in the United States, we have massive protests, and yeah, the police come out, and they're pretty brutal. The police can be pretty brutal. But the people have a right to resist. They have a right to protest. They have a right to gather, and demand that grievances be addressed. They have that right. Well, in China right now is authoritarian. They don't have democracy. They don't have freedom the way that we have freedom. So they're not. Their government is absolute. You cannot question the government. Their representatives are chosen by the government. It's not chosen by the people. So the interests of the people aren't necessarily represented. The people are treated more like cattle and less like humans. So if they try to protest, if they try to gather peacefully and demand the government address their grievances, if they try to do that, the government under authoritarianism is absolute. Authority is absolute, hence authoritarianism. So the government, in order to quote restore order, literally sent tanks against its own people, its own civilian population. They sent tanks after their own unarmed civilian population for gathering in Tiananmen Square peacefully. They sent tanks. They didn't just send tanks, they ran over people with those tanks. Like literally ran them over with tanks. Because the state was never to be questioned. Humans have no rights there. The state will do whatever it has to in order to maintain itself. So for them, do you understand how the power has shifted away from the people and is in the hands of the state? Now who controls the state? Right? You see where this is going? The state is controlled by a very few group of people. It's the power, therefore, the power is concentrated in the hands of very few people, and it's disconnected from the people. The people have no input. They can't reach the power. They can't make changes. They can't say anything. So, the same thing in Russia, right? Same thing in Russia. Russia, they nominally have elections, but it's not a true election because it's not a true vote. When Russia does elections, it's actually an oligarchy. Russia is an oligarchy. Don't be fooled by the fact that Russia holds fake elections. It's actually an oligarchy whereby the power is concentrated in the hands of the very few people and centered right now on Vladimir Putin. So, sure, they will have quote elections in Russia, but it's not a true reflection of the people because anyone who runs against Vladimir Putin is eliminated by the state, either arrested or pushed out a window and killed, or poisoned, or coerced into quitting. So you're not free to run against Vladimir Putin. In addition, the vote itself is tampered with. The government will literally send agents to literally stuff the ballot box with fake votes to ensure that Vladimir Putin receives the winning number of votes by a landslide. So it's not a real election. It's like making fun of elections. That's what they're doing. So don't be fooled by the surface. Look deeper to see that Russia is an oligarchy. And they have no rights. There's no such thing as human rights. You can't protest at all in Russia. At all. If you try to protest in Russia, they will not even protest, right? You can stand there holding a blank sign. There's a piece of paper with nothing on it. If you stand there holding a piece of paper with nothing on it, the government will come and arrest you for holding a blank sign. They're not free. The Russian people are not free. The power is not in the hands of the Russian people right now. The power is being taken by Putin and his oligarch gang. Yeah. Democracy is something very, very, very important. It's not a make-believe thing. It's a real thing. It's real. I mean, it's real on a level separate from people when people think of real, when a lot of people think of real, all they think of is tangible things. Tangible. They bring their sense of realism down to what they can feel. With their skin, what they can feel with their skin. They don't have a concept of, like, it's hard for them to assign the idea of real to things that don't have a material component that you can touch with your skin. If you can only sense it indirectly, like, it's not it's like either through yeah, if they can't see the whole thing directly, if they can't perceive the whole thing directly, then it's not really real. But there's a level of reality where things are very real, but they're beyond the sense of touch. Things like organization. An organization is like a concept, right? What is organization? Organization is reason applied to behavior. An organization is reason. Well, not necessarily. I mean, there's different words. Like, how can you define organization? There's lots. Like, there's like the organization of atoms. When atoms have a particular pattern, they create elements or elements. No. Yeah. They create elements. Whoa, no, the elements are elemental. Oh, wait. Bing. I closed the gate. I found a guy who's not who's a villager and not a zombie. So I will use my axe to single target kill that one zombie. Ding. Now all that is left is this guy. So I'm going to open the door and it will show him the egg, and he will rush after the egg, not understanding that this is a trap. Watch it happen. So this is an example of things being real, but you can't see them. The trap is real, but you can't see it. It appears to be something else, at least to the zombie. So watch. Sometimes he gets stuck in the door. He's not fast enough. Come on, zombie. I whack him once. Alright. There he goes. He thought he was clever. He thought he was smart. Little did he realize he fell into a trap. When he bounces, he's like, no, I deny it. But eventually, he succumbs to the realization that he's trapped. And so now, I can do the next stage. I will cure this guy. So I have my dispenser full of minecarts, and I will do Minecraft magic to transport him through the glass into this minecart. I would take a golden apple, which symbolizes knowledge, and I will take a potion of weakness, which will not harm him. It will just make him weak. It doesn't harm. I splashed him with it, and it will feed him the knowledge. Now that he's weakened, he ate the knowledge. And look at him tremble. Look at him. He's like, oh my gosh, this is incredible what you're teaching me, what you're telling me. You can go ahead and sit with that for a while. In the meantime. Okay. Back to the Constitution. In Article 1, Section 3 of the Senate, it says, impeachment and judgments. Impeachment and judgments. Judgment in the case of impeachment shall not extend further than to remove from office. So, what this is saying is that when the Senate votes and to impeach, to convict a president, the punishment cannot be do 100 push-ups. The punishment cannot be pay a bunch of money. The punishment cannot be go to jail. Cannot be that. The only thing that the Senate can do when it impeaches a president is to remove from office. But there's more, right? Not only remove from office, you are disqualified. You remove from office and you're disqualified to hold and enjoy, because it's enjoyable to hold an office. I guess. I don't know. If you're in office, you're like, ooh, this feels nice. I don't know. But to hold and enjoy any office of honor, trust, or profit. So, I would say that the office of the presidency is pretty honorable. It's honorable. That's why people call them the president, like, even after they're president. They're like ex-president, and like treat them with a lot of respect and stuff, you know. So okay, the office of the presidency is an office of honor. It's also an office of trust, because you have to trust that the president, who is imbued with all the executive power of the state, you have to trust that they will wield their power responsibly on your behalf. Because the power isn't coming from the president. The power is coming from the people who voted in the president. But not even that, right? The power also comes from the people who didn't vote for the guy. Because they consent to abide by the rules of democracy and by the election. So he's the president of both like of everybody in that country. Even if you didn't vote for him, he's the president of you. So, or profit. So, judgment in cases of impeachment shall not extend further than to remove from office and disqualification to hold and enjoy any office of honor, trust, or profit. I don't understand what profit would be. I know they're trying to turn the post office to turn a profit. But the post office isn't supposed to make a profit. It's supposed to deliver mail, per the Constitution. It has nothing to do with profit. But okay, anyways, that's beside the point. Next, the question, it says, but the party convicted shall nevertheless be liable and subject to indictment, trial, judgment, and punishment according to law. So what does that say? The party convicted shall nevertheless be liable. So the party convicted. So if who would that be? The party convicted. That would be the president. If the president were convicted by the Senate cannot impose any punishment other than removal from office and disqualification from future offices. That's the only thing they can do. But the president, the party convicted, which is the president shall nevertheless be liable. So what does it mean to be liable? To be responsible for. So Donald Trump was found liable for defamation of E. Jean Carroll. So E. Jean Carroll is a woman who she testifies, said that Donald Trump cornered her in a closet like pushed her up against the wall and jammed his fingers up her vagina. And she told a bunch of people that this happened. And there were a bunch of witnesses. Donald Trump, in response, said that E. Jean Carroll was lying and said a bunch of other things that were really, really, really bad about her. In order to make her so that, like, and if you think bad about a person, you are less likely to utilize their services or their business because you heard these things about them. Now, what if the things that you heard about them were not true? Like, this person is saying these bad things that are not true, but it's hurting your reputation and your business. Then you can sue for you can sue for defamation, saying this person is lying about me and it's wrecking my reputation and my business. So E. Jean Carroll sued Donald Trump and Donald Trump lost. Donald Trump was ordered to say you cannot lie about E. Jean Carroll anymore. This event happened. You committed sexual assault. You're not being punished with sexual assault, and you're not being charged with sexual assault because the sexual assault happened so long ago that it's outside the statute of limitations. However, it happened. And if you deny it, or like you cannot say that it didn't happen and that E. Jean Carroll is these bad things about her. You can't say these bad things about her because it's true. And then so Donald Trump, he lost. He had to pay a bunch of money. But then he didn't respect the authority of the United States because the United States is imbued with the will of the people. But he doesn't respect that. Donald Trump is an authoritarian. He wants to concentrate the power into the hands of the few. So he disregarded the verdict of the court. And he defamed E. Jean Carroll again. He lied about her on a national stage. Not just like in private did he lie about her. He used a public platform to lie loudly about her in public. So he was brought to court again. And then he was found to have breached the court order to not lie about E. Jean Carroll again. So he was ordered to pay like $100 million. So why? Because he was found liable of defamation. It's not a criminal thing, but to be liable is to be subject to, like found responsible for. You're responsible for this. That's what it means to be liable. You're responsible for this. So to come back to the Constitution, Article 1, Section 3, Senate says, even like the worst you can do to a president that you impeach is to remove from office and to disqualify him for the future. But even if you do this, the president is still liable and subject to indictment, trial, judgment, and punishment according to the law. So the party convicted is still subject to the law. That means the president in the Constitution is still subject to the law. Like, even if he's been convicted by the Senate, he is still subject to the law. Now, wait a minute. Do you see that? Do you see that how it doesn't say explicitly that because someone might argue. They'll say, "Oh, wait. they're talking about the party convicted. That's what they'll say, right? I can see it already. I can see, they're going to argue and say, oh, they're talking about the party convicted by the Senate, which means that you have to not only impeach a president, you have to convict them in the Senate, and no president has ever been convicted by the Senate. So then, the argument to defend would be, so therefore, this clause does not apply to a president who was not convicted. They don't say anything about a president not convicted. So then I'll say, aha, you have to go deeper. Because non-convicted presidents are still subject to the law, even though it's not explicitly stated in the Constitution, because it's implied with in the clause. So the party convicted shall nevertheless be liable and subject to the law. The party convicted. Why would if the party convicted were subject to the law, why would the party unconvicted not be subject to the law? Like, it's implied that everyone is subject to the law. What this clause is saying is that even if you are convicted by the Senate, that doesn't limit the amount of punishment you can receive if you break the law. That's what this clause really, really means. It's saying that even if you're convicted, it doesn't limit the punishment that can be inflicted upon you for breaking the law. But just because you're not convicted by the Senate doesn't mean you're not subject to the law. It just means that impeachment and conviction doesn't limit the amount of punishment a president can receive for breaking the law. That's all it says. That's what it says. It's literally in the Constitution. And yet, you have, 6 Republican judges invent a whole new word. Invent a whole new word. You will never find it in the Constitution. A whole new word called immunity. Presidential immunity. And then they added another thing. Not only did they say presidential immunity, they added another phrase that's nowhere in the Constitution. And that's official acts. The Republican judges on the Supreme Court literally invented new words that are not in the Constitution, and then pointed to their imaginary words, their imaginary words. They pointed to the imaginary words and said these imaginary words are more important than the words that were already written in the Constitution. Remember when Donald Trump took a Sharpie and drew a line on a map about a hurricane to show that, to make it say something that it didn't say? Do you remember that? Do I have that? Maybe I do. Sharpie. I'm gonna pull it up because I think it's pretty funny. Trump Sharpie map. Trump Sharpie map. Do do do. Do do do. Do do do. Do do do. Where'd it go? I just threw it in here. Oh, there it is. Check this out. Donald Trump. So Donald Trump wanted to say that the hurricane was going to hit Alabama. I forget why he wanted to say it, but he wanted to say the hurricane was going to hit Alabama, and the weather forecasters are like, no, it's not going to hit Alabama. It's not going to happen. And I don't know why he wanted so bad to hit Alabama, but for some reason Donald Trump really, really, really wanted the storm to hit Alabama, and it didn't happen. So he gets the government map from the American government. He gets the map from the American government, and then literally takes a marker to draw in this bulge so that it would hit Alabama. His whole goal was to make it hit Alabama. He literally so there's like the truth of the matter, and he takes a Sharpie to write his own reality into it. That's what the Republican judges did in the Supreme Court with Donald Trump's argument. They literally took a Sharpie and wrote in the words presidential official acts and presidential immunity. And then they crossed out the part where it says that the office is subject to the law. So I said all that to prove to you, beyond any attempt to toss it away, Donald Trump and the Republicans are literally trying to overthrow the Constitution. They're literally trying to overthrow the Constitution. And so the Supreme Court has already done the first part of the coup. The first part of the coup for the Supreme Court was that, I'm going to get coffee as I keep talking. The first part of the coup that the Supreme Court already enacted was to say that Donald Trump had immunity for his attempt to overthrow the government on January 6, 2021. And the way they did it was to say that not that Donald Trump himself was imbued with the authority to be immune, but that the office of the presidency is the thing that is imbued with the immunity. However, the Republicans argued, however, that immunity only applies so far as it affects official acts. If the act that the president does is a quote official act, then it's immune. Then the president has immunity. You can't charge the president with a crime if the act is official. If the act is not official, then the action is not immune, and the president is subject to the law. That's their new standard. Then a reasonable person would ask, okay, then what is an official act? Because it's not in the Constitution, remember? It's not in the Constitution. They had to use a Sharpie to write in the word presidential immunity and official acts. They had to use a Sharpie to do it. But that to them, that's their brilliance. That's the Republicans thinking their real galaxy brain. They think, galaxy brain. On purpose, the Republicans did not define what is an official act. On purpose. Because they want to retain the power to decide if a president, to have a check, basically to have a check on the president. They want to be the ones to hold the reins of the president. So they're the ones who decide if what the president did is immune or not immune. They want to be that because They didn't tell you what an official act was. Only they know what the official act is. So the only way you're going to find out is if you bring it before the Supreme Court. And if they like you, then they'll let you get away. And if they don't, then they won't let you get away with it. That's why Joe Biden, no matter what he does, it will never be an official act. And the court will hold him subject to the law. But if Donald Trump breaks the law, they will rule that what he did was an official act, and he's immune from the law because they like Donald Trump. Because remember, Donald Trump put a lot of them in power, like 3 of them. He put 3 of them in power. 3 of the 6 directly. Okay. Okay, what's the next part? Well, so that's the first part of the coup, is what I'm saying. And they were put into place by Donald Trump. So he picked them. So they were able to create this new standard called official act, and wrote on with a Sharpie on the Constitution the words presidential immunity, while crossing out Article 1, Section 3. So, but they retained the power by making it so that only the Supreme Court could define what is an official act. And they think they're smart. However, Adam Serwer wrote an article that explains that they're not so clever, that they're actually pretty dumb. Adam Serwer writes, the Supreme Court's ruling on presidential immunity combines with its regulatory decisions this term to remake the executive branch into the ideal right-wing combination of impotence and power, too weak to regulate, restrain, or punish private industry for infractions, but strong enough for the president to order his political opponents murdered or imprisoned. To ordinary people, the president is a king. To titans of industry, he is a pawn. Given the work that Trump justices have done here, the billionaires' class affection for Trump, often presented as counterintuitive, is not difficult to understand. Yet, when it comes to the justices' decision on immunity, they were too clever by half. They seem to believe that when a president goes too far for their tastes, they can declare that he's not immune and constrain him. But there is a danger in a ruling that invites presidents to test the limits of their power. By the time a rogue president goes too far, he is unlikely to care what the Supreme Court says. A president unbound by the law is shackled only by the dictates of his own conscience, and a president without a conscience faces no restraint at all. And because the court ruled as it did, when it did, and on behalf of a man lawless enough to try to overturn an election, Americans may pay for the justices' hubris sooner rather than later. So, the Supreme Court thinks it's able, thinks it was like, oh yeah, I was smart because I only said presidents are immune as long as what they do is an official act, and only I can decide what an official act is. So they think they're being smart because they think they're holding on to the power. But remember, the Supreme Court has zero power of enforcement. It has zero power of enforcement. There's no judicial police. There's no judicial jail. There's no judicial prison. There's no judicial agents to arrest you. There's no judicial cops. The Justice Department has no mechanism to enforce any of its rulings. It can't do it. It has nothing. It has nothing to enforce them with. So it doesn't matter what the court says, because it comes down to enforcement. The court can rule whatever it wants, but its ruling isn't gonna mean jack if it's not enforced. If there isn't a punishment for breaking the rule. And who are the ones that do the punishment? Who are the ones that execute the law? Not judge the law, not legislate the law, create the law, but the ones who execute the law. Who are the ones who execute the law? The executive branch. They're the ones with the Justice Department, with agents who can arrest you and kill you. So the Justice Department is the judicial branch is dependent upon the executive branch to enforce its rulings. If what happens if the judicial branch makes a ruling, but the executive branch doesn't enforce it, doesn't respect the ruling? What happens? Nothing. Nothing. The judicial department can't do anything about it. Like, maybe politicians can take away funding. Maybe the legislature can defund the rogue agency, or like if there's laws broken, maybe they can break some, impeach the person, and then install like a leader who can restore the executive. But if the executive branch decides to like ignore both the legislature and the judicial, what are you gonna do? So the danger of saying only the judicial branch can determine if a president's action is official and immune. Only we can do it. The problem with that is believing that the president is going to listen to what the Supreme Court says. If the president decides that, oh yeah, I'm just going to fucking murder my political opponents, and the Supreme Court comes down and says, yeah, no, we don't think that's an official act, that's not immune. What if the president says, I don't care what you say, justices, in fact, I'm going to get you killed too, I'm going to kill you too? What are they going to do? Say, no, you can't do that. You can't kill justices. That's against the law. That's not an official act. A little late. That's the danger. That's the danger. The justices, once the president is given immunity, the justices serve no purpose anymore. Because you're no longer interested in the concept of justice. You're only operating via power. So, the first part of the coup is what I'm getting to, right? This is a long... I'm talking a lot, right? It's a lot I'm saying, but like I'm linking everything together. So the first part of the coup has already been done. They've taken away rights, a shit ton of rights already. They're preparing the second part of the coup. Now Donald Trump is preparing his people. He's already telling them, "Here, dude, get out of here. Why don't you go downstairs? See ya." Oh no. Okay. He's fine. He's fine. He's chilling. Chilling in the village. Okay, so the first part of the coup is already done. Now we're getting ready for the second part of the coup. What is the second part of the coup? The second part of the coup is going to be legislative, or not lawfare. Republicans are great at lawfare. Lawfare is using the court as a way of attacking your opponents. For example, Elon Musk sued an independent agency over and over and over again for its stories because the stories were critical of Elon Musk. And the agent, the small company, the small press, the small journalistic agency defended itself, but Elon Musk kept suing again and again and again to the point where they couldn't make any money. They're spending all their money on lawyers. So they went out of business. They couldn't do business anymore because if they tried, Elon Musk would sue them. So that's a way of how oligarchs use their power and use the justice system to like kill and silence voices they don't like. Yeah, Elon Musk is a bad guy. You gotta understand. He's not a good guy. He's a bad guy. Okay, Elon Musk. What's the next connection? I can make explicit. Why do you even talk about Elon Musk? I was talking about yeah, why did I talk about Elon Musk? What was that about? Let me think. See, the problem... Oh, wrong way. The problem I have is that up in there's gonna be guys that don't die. Oh, maybe not. I don't see them. But yeah, this is how it works. All these monsters spawn. It's dark in there. All these monsters spawn on the platform. They believe that this is a solid floor. They don't know. They don't know this is not a solid floor. And so they try to walk. But when they walk, they fall into the tunnel. Elon Musk. Oh yeah. The second part of the coup. Lawfare. I was talking about lawfare and how Elon Musk was engaged in lawfare against independent press because he didn't like their speech. The Republicans are planning on using lawfare to attack our elections. So that means they're going to file a number of frivolous lawsuits in order to create the perception of impropriety in our elections with no proof. Right? He's going to do it. He's going to try to create the impression of impropriety without the proof of impropriety through the expenditure of lots of money. What do I mean? He's gonna challenge every single precinct or voting poll. He's gonna challenge everything, just to make problems. Not that there's anything wrong, but he wants to make the appearance that something's wrong. So, listen.
We have lawyers at every poll booth. We have, that's what in fact, my instruction, we don't need the votes. I have so many votes. I'm in Florida now, and I drove. So,
do you understand? He's going to have lawyers at every poll polling place. That's a lot of money. You need a lot of money to pay for lawyers to sit at every polling station to harass voters as they go vote in an attempt to intimidate them into not voting. That's a lot of money they're going to expend on that.
To another location yesterday, and every house has a Trump Vance sign on it. Every single house. There's not a house.
Yeah, you're lying. He's a liar.
We have the votes. What we have.
He's a liar.
Charlie Chris house then.
I know.
Just saying.
No, Charlie. I think Charlie probably has one up too. If you want to know that.
He's a Republican.
Yeah, they're trying to get him to shut up so they can like end, and he won't shut up. Yeah, they're trying to get him to shut up, and he won't stop talking.
Everybody has. It's amazing, the spirit. And I'll say this: we had 2 elections. The first election we did great. The second election.
No, you had the first election. He used what's his face's. He had Russia's help. The first election, he had Russia's help. He probably had Russia's help in the second election too, and I'm sure that he has Russia's help in this third election. We already know this, right? Donald, right now, Vladimir Putin is holding an American hostage, and they put the American is a journalist for the Wall Street Journal, and they were just doing their job, dude, right? Which is reporting, writing stories, and sending them into the Wall Street Journal. And the Russian government arrested him. The Russian government is Vladimir Putin. Vladimir Putin arrested him. And accused him of spying, and then put him in prison for a bunch of years. And of course, you don't have rights over in Russia, so the trial was a sham trial. If Putin doesn't like you, he's gonna put you in prison. It doesn't matter. So this American reporter was arrested, had a sham trial, and put into prison. Then Donald Trump said in the press, in public, he addressed Vladimir Putin and said, "Hold on to the hostage." He told Putin to don't give the hostage up, to hold on to the hostage. He said, "Russia, keep the American hostage." He said until after the election. Well, why? Why should Russia decide to hold on to an American hostage until after the election? Because Donald Trump is making a promise. He says, if you do this, I will give you something of value in exchange. So he's literally conducting foreign policy and asking, like, so in other words, if you want this to happen, if you want to exchange the American hostage for favorable policy, American policy, help Donald Trump become president. So Vladimir Putin's like, oh wow, all Vladimir Putin has to do is help Donald Trump become president, and then I can cash in this American for something that helps Russia. Oh, sure, I'm sure Vladimir Putin's gonna be like, that's a good deal. Because Vladimir Putin, there's a lot of things Vladimir Putin wants. One of the things he wants is Ukraine. The thing that stops Vladimir Putin from getting Ukraine is U.S. assistance. The United States is giving Ukraine our old gear. And that old gear is better than the Russian gear. And it helps Ukraine to defend itself, to preserve its freedom and democracy. Remember I was telling you about the difference between democracy and the difference between democracy and authoritarianism? Russia is an authoritarian state. It's the people are not free. And the nature of authoritarian state is that it doesn't work unless it's conquering other nations. It literally has to expand or it dies. because it can't sustain itself. It's not able to. Russia is a country that can't sustain itself because it's so in its organization. That, remember that thing that said I was telling you about what's real and what's not real? Organization, this concept, is a real thing. Maybe you can't touch organization. Maybe you can't hold organization. Maybe you can't see the entirety of organization. But you can perceive bits and pieces of the concept of organization. You can perceive it. Just you can't. But the totality of it is beyond your ability to completely grasp with your senses. You have to use reason. Organization is a real thing. Quality of organization is a real thing. How do I know it's real? Because you can't touch it, you can't see it, you can't taste it, you can't tap on it and listen to the sound it makes. Like you can't use your eyeballs to look for damage. I mean, maybe indirectly to organization. No, you perceive organization indirectly. You can perceive organization by how quickly and efficiently its goals are achieved. It can state its goals on a piece of paper, this organization, and then you can measure how well the organization's goal is achieved. What actions is the organization taking in order to affect change in the material world? So it's a real thing. It's real. It's beyond the world of material. It's embedded. It intersects with the world of material, but it is not confined to the world of material. It exists on multiple planes of existence that are beyond your five senses. You have to use your intuition and reason in order to perceive these other directions. And you can't perceive these other dimensions directly. You can only perceive their cross-section, their shadow that intersects with our reality. I mean, the material reality of our five senses. So Russia is not able to organize itself in a manner in which it's self-sufficient. It's like you ever see like those microscopic amoeba cells or whatever? I don't even know the real names. They're like little tiny animals. They're one-celled animals, and they have like little wigglers that wiggle, and they can like move around. That's an example of organization in the material sense. That organism has achieved homeostasis in that there's a barrier between its internal organs and the external world. And that barrier regulates what comes in and out of it. And that's how you identify it as a singular object, as opposed to everything that's not it. So it's internally organized, is what I'm saying. It's internally organized in such a way that it can propel itself forward through time. It'll be there tomorrow, is what I'm saying, in the future. Russia doesn't have this ability. Russia is like an organism where the barrier between it and the external world is broken. And its internal organization is being sucked out of it. So in order to maintain energy, to maintain cohesion, it has to draw energy from somewhere. Or not even energy, I mean like organization. And the way it does that is it literally takes over. It has to expand. And so it's expanding, like there's not an infinite place for it to expand to. it already like took over the ethnic regions in the east and directed its energy back toward Moscow. Now it needs more, like a vampire. And so it's trying to eat Ukraine. So Donald Trump could help Russia by destroying the organization which resists the Russian invasion. He's a bad guy. He's bad for the United States. He's good for the Confederate Republic. Yes, Donald Trump is great for the Confederate Republic, the Confederates. But he's terrible for the United States. That's the distinction. Like, those guys are a Confederate Republic, and the United States is a democracy. If you want the easy breakdown, Confederates are talking about a Confederate Republic, and Americans are talking about the democratic United States. Perfect way of encapsulating the two different sides. So Russia, so you can see the effects of organization. Like, you can say, oh, organization's not real, it's not something I can touch. But no, it's true. Organization is real. You can see it's just larger than what individuals can perceive in a slice of 3D space. You have to perceive it indirectly by noting, like, how healthy are the residents of Russia in comparison to democratic states. And then you can see Russia does terrible. The people of Russia are terrible on average. Like, they're much lower standard of living in Russia than it is in other nations. I'm not saying other nations are doing it perfect, but in general, when the power is invested in the people, there's greater stability and greater efficiency compared to when, such as in Russia, the power is concentrated into the hands of the elite. The contradiction of Russia is that it has to expand to survive. If it doesn't expand, it'll die. And so the only way it can do that is through invasion. So yeah, get rid of this guy. So this is what I'm talking about. This is a guy. Please welcome to this. This is a guy running for governor, I believe, or I'm not sure if he's running for governor or what. But this encapsulates the when I talk about the Confederate Republic. When I talk about the Confederate Republic, I'm talking about this.
Please welcome to the stage State Senator George Lang.
This state senator, George Lang, encapsulates the ideas. When I talk about Confederate Republic, this guy is going to tell you about the Confederate Republic. Listen, he belongs to that.
Fight! 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 Fight!
Fight? What? What are you talking about, dude? This is a political rally, not a football game. What are you talking about?
We got time. Come on. Hey, we are in the fight for the soul of our nation.
That's right. That's right. We are in the fight of the soul of our nation. We have these guys who are Confederate Republicans. Confederate Republicans. When they say that's who they are, Confederate Republicans. They represent the Confederacy. The Confederacy represents slavery. We've been through this before, remember? We've already done this. We've already done this. The only problem was the last time we did it, the job wasn't done. The Confederates were allowed to preserve their culture and their ideas, which is why we're in the situation we're in today. America is on the cusp of becoming a multiracial democracy, which is the opposite of what Confederate republics want. Confederate Republicans. It's the opposite. So these guys realize they are in the fights of for the soul of their nation, of the nation. Is the United States going to become a multiracial democracy, or will the United States become an ethno-state, which is authoritarian state controlled by white people, by ethnicity, that stratifies by ethnicity? What he says there is true. So what's the next part?
We are in a fight for our kids and our grandkids, a fight that we can never imagine.
That's right. Donald Trump has already tried to overthrow the Constitution. He already tried to overthrow the Constitution. On January 6, 2021, Donald Trump attempted to he had already lost the election. Donald Trump had already lost the election, but he was attempting to hold on to power anyways. The way he was going to do it was he was going to delay the certification of the vote so that he could file an injunction in the Supreme Court and hold on to power. So it was only by the defense of the Capitol Police that democracy was saved from Donald Trump that day. So we are in the fight for and nothing was done, right? Donald Trump is still a free man because he has all these corrupt judges working for him. So what he says so far is true. So and remember, these guys, Confederate Republicans, remember what they want to do. They're taking away books from schools. They're privatizing education by enacting vouchers. School vouchers is not a good idea. School vouchers are a way of transferring public money to private schools. And why would you want to do that? Because it concentrates power into the hands of the few. That's why they do it. And who wants to concentrate who wants to concentrate power into the hands of the few? The authoritarians, the fascists. So we are in a fight for our nation and for our souls and for our kids against these guys. Who are these guys? These are Confederate Republicans.
I believe wholeheartedly Donald Trump and Butler County's J.D. Vance are the last chance to save our country politically.
So what he's saying is that America is on the cusp of becoming a multiracial democracy. Multiracial democracy means that it's democracy and that power is not concentrated into the hands of any one group. No one group is going to have more power over any other group. The majority of power. So what does that mean? That means historically, the United States has been an ethno-state. And in that, the majority of power was held by a single ethnic group. That ethnic group called itself white. And that's the traditional way of the way it worked. Is that the United States is traditionally an ethno-state, whereby the majority of power is held by one ethnic group, that's white. Quote, quote, white. But now, through time, through demographics, through government programs, through whatever, I don't even know. Now, the United States is moving into demographics in which the majority of people, the white people, are no longer the majority of the population. It will come a time when white people, all the white people as an ethnic group put together, will not be a majority of the country, but they'll be like at 49% of the country. They'll be the largest minority, but they will not be a single majority. No one group is going to be the majority group of people in the United States. Which is fantastic if your idea is to distribute power into the hands of the people. It's fantastic because no longer can you concentrate the power into one ethnic group. Now, by the nature of the political body, now you have to split up the power into and spread it around. Which, you know, that's great if you're into democracy. However, if you're an authoritarian, and remember, the Confederacy is authoritarian, it's fascist. It wants an ethno-state. It is the remnants, the Confederate Republicans, they are the remnants of the old Confederates. The people who tried to overthrow the United States in order to preserve the institution of slavery. And what is the institution of slavery? It's the outright denial of human rights. Utter denial of human rights. There are no such thing as human rights to a Confederate. So the Confederacy is literally opposite of American values. Literally opposite. Okay, so let's keep going here. So what he's saying that this is the last chance for the Confederates to take power, because they see that the United States is becoming majority minority. They were able to maintain themselves. Like, sure, they were defeated in the end of the Civil War, but only militarily. Only their military was defeated. Their leaders were not imprisoned and killed. Right? The law says that traitors are to be executed. They weren't executed. The United States government killed a bunch of Dakota or Lakota, I'm not sure which one, natives. They killed a bunch of natives who were prisoners of war. They executed prisoners of war, which is like against, you don't execute prisoners of war. But they executed Native Americans, prisoners of war, and labeled them traitors. But you can't do, because they were never part of the American government or country. They were part of their own country, the native country. And you can only execute people as traitors who are part of your own group. That's like Russia executing Ukrainians and then for being a traitor. No, Ukraine's its own thing. It was never loyal. It's not subject. It's not it doesn't pledge allegiance to Russia. You can't be a traitor if you don't pledge allegiance. So the Confederates recognize this is their last chance to overthrow the American government. Right now the Confederates, like, sure, they were defeated militarily, but the culture of white supremacy, of the Confederacy, lived on. The organization of the Confederacy lived on. And it was able to live on inside the United States because it was majority of white people, majority white. That's why. It was majority white. So they could pretend to have democracy as long as the majority of people were white. But now it's coming to a point where the majority of people are not going to be white. So they cannot win in democracy anymore. So in order for the Confederate nation to live on, it has to overthrow democracy. They have to get rid of democracy if they want to continue the Confederacy. And they say this is their last chance to do it. That if they can't overthrow democracy this time, that they're gonna end. The Confederacy is gonna end. Rad. Can't wait. Oh. Let's continue.
I'm afraid if we lose this one, it's going to take a civil war to save the country, and it will be.
So he's saying if the Confederacy, if the Confederate Republic can't overthrow the government, the American government, in 2024, if they can't do it, the Confederacy is going to have to engage in civil war against the United States. That's what he said. That's what he said. So this is a state senator. This is a state senator from Alabama. It's a state senator saying that the Confederates can't overthrow the American Constitution. That the Confederates are going to have to engage in civil war. What the fuck is going on?
Saved.
Please welcome to the stage State
Let's
Senator
hear it all
George
again,
Lang.
right? Hear it again.
Fight!
So he's telling the audience to fight. He's telling the audience to fight. And he ends with civil war. And you understand that he's a Confederate Republican. You can even ask him, as it's like, how do things work in your democracy? And he says, oh, we don't have a democracy. We, the Confederate Republicans, have a republic. Their nation doesn't have democracy. Their nation has the Confederates. They have a republic. So listen. So remember, he's not talking about the United States. He's talking about the Confederate Republic, his own nation.
Fight! We got time. Come on. Hey, we are in the fight for the soul of our nation.
So he's talking about not the American nation. He's talking about the Confederate Republic. Understand what he's talking about.
We are in a fight for our kids and our grandkids, a fight that we can never.
So yeah, he's talking about education. When he talks about kids and grandkids, he's talking about education. He wants to enforce the two-gender rule. He wants to enforce the two-gender rule and use the government to coerce people into following his conception of two genders. He can only, remember, he only sees black and white. He can't see colors. He can only see black and white. And in his mind, gender is a binary. There's only two colors that he can see. And that his brain can only process two colors, black and white. That's all he can do. So when he talks about saving our kids, he's afraid that his kids will be able to see more than two colors. And he's terrified of that. How can my kids see more than I can see? And so he wants to use the power of the state to compel the children to gaslight themselves into believing they can only see two colors. That's what he's talking about. Because he knows that if his kids are affirmed about what they perceive, then they're not. It's going to be harder to brainwash them in the future, to coerce them into saying no. There's only two colors. So that's what he's talking about.
Imagine. I believe wholeheartedly Donald Trump and Butler County's J.D. Vance are the last chance to save our country politically.
So our country. He's talking about the Confederate Republic, not the United States. He's talking about the Confederate Republic. So Donald Trump is the last chance for the Confederate Republic. He's not talking about the Americans. He's talking about the Confederate Republic.
I'm afraid if we lose this one, it's going to take a civil war to save the country, and it will be.
So he's saying if the Confederate Republic is not able to overthrow the United States, he says it's going to take a civil war to save that country. And remember how he started his interview. Fight, 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 fight. Civil war to save the country. Fight, 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 fight. Yeah, you see where they're going? You see where they're going? Do you see where they're going? It's easy to see. You can't maybe perceive all of it at once. So, like, imagine there are 3 blind men, and they happen to, you know, they're walking, and then they happen upon a creature. They happen upon a creature, and the first one, he touches the creature with his senses because he's blind, right? He can't see. He touches the creature, and he says, "Oh, we've come across a giant tree, a big tree." That's what we're here. This creature I found. It's a tree. With my senses, I perceive that I've found a tree. And another one touches the snout, or touches the creature, and says, "No, we have not found a tree. We have found a snake. I'm touching the snake right now. It's a snake. I feel it. It's a snake." And the other one touches the creature and says, "No, we found I don't know, a manta ray. We found a manta ray. I am touching it now. It feels like a manta ray." So wait a minute. These 3 blind guys are walking down the street, and they're touching the same creature, but they're saying 3 different things. One guy says a tree by the trunk, or by the tree trunk, because it's thick and round. The other guy says no, it's a snake, because it feels like it's long and skinny. And the other guy says no, it's a manta ray, because it's thin and big. But the rest of us, like, we're not blind. So we look, and what do we see? Oh, it's an elephant. It's an elephant. The three blind guys, because their senses are limited, only have a small, their perception can only ascertain a small portion of the entirety of the creature. It's only because we're able to perceive with vision that we see that it's not a snake or a manta ray or a tree trunk. It's actually an elephant. That's the same thing. You can't directly perceive the thing, but just because you can't directly perceive the entirety of the creature you're observing or the entity that you're observing doesn't mean like that it's not more than you can perceive. There are things bigger than you and me. And you are not me. Bigger than you, and you are not me. Bigger than you, and you are not me. Okay. Where am I at here? Harris was never a border czar. Time magazine. In fact, Harris was never put in charge of the border or immigration policy, nor was she involved in overseeing law enforcement efforts or guiding the federal response to the crisis. Her mandate was much narrower, to focus on examining and improving the underlying conditions in the northern triangle of Central America. That's El Salvador, Guatemala, and Honduras, which have been racked by decades of poverty, war, chronic violence, and political instability. The strategy relied on allocating billions for economic programs and stimulating private sector investment in the region in hopes that these programs would ultimately lead fewer migrants to make the dangerous journey north. So her job was to check out these nations here. Her job was to check out these nations here. Guatemala, Honduras, and El Salvador. I think that they said. The border is about what happens up here. So she was never about what happens here. She was about what happens here. That's why she's not the border czar. She was never the border czar. The only ones that call her border czars are authoritarians. Because they're not bound by the truth. Right? Their only interest is power. So they will use the word to not to illuminate truth, but to concentrate power. Just like the Republican justices use the word via the Sharpie to invent their own language, to give power, to concentrate power. What else we got? So Harris was also a prosecutor. Born in Oakland, Harris has said she was inspired to become a prosecutor after learning a high school friend had been sexually abused by a family member. She served as a deputy prosecutor in Alameda County and in 2003 became the first woman and first black president-elect district attorney of San Francisco. She broke those same barriers when she became California's attorney general in 2010 before her election to U.S. Senate in 2016. So Harris is supremely qualified. Harris is supremely qualified. She was a district attorney and an attorney general and a senator. How many elections has Donald Trump won? 0. He didn't win the 2016 election because he had help from Russia and he lost the popular vote. So he gamed the electoral college, but he lost the popular vote. When it came down to it, Vladimir Putin could not influence the majority of Americans to elect Donald Trump. He could only game the key districts he needed in order to eke out a legislative or electoral college win. That's it. It's not legitimate. Yeah, Kamala Harris's accomplishments. What does she do? Cast a tie-breaking vote for the American Rescue Plan of 2021, extend the child tax credit through the American Rescue Plan, extend unemployment benefits through the American Rescue Plan, secured funding for replacing lead water service lines, launched the Central America Forward Initiative, passed the COVID-19 Hate Crimes Act, passed the Freedom to Vote Act in the House, passed the John Lewis Voting Rights Advancement Act in the House, expanded health care coverage through policy initiatives, championed criminal justice reform through specific legislation, expanded background checks for gun purchases through legislation, implemented economic justice policies, made black maternal health a national priority through policy actions, increased diversity in government appointments, passed legislation for the renewable energy production, secured funding for combating climate change, passed infrastructure development initiatives. Like, sounds like she was a really busy person. When we look at the federal government, Nancy Pelosi, with a slim one vote majority, managed to pass a pretty fucking large amount of legislation. She didn't, at least she didn't slouch in passing legislation. However, when Republicans took power in 2022, they were unable to pass any legislation whatsoever because Republicans are unable to govern. They're just unable to do it. When Republicans had a trifecta in 2018 to 2020, they shut down the government 2 times. That is to say, when Republicans controlled both the House, the Senate, and the presidency, They had to shut down the government 2 times when they controlled everything. Why? Because the Republicans are unable to govern. Talk about organization. Organization is real. It's a real thing. Who are the Republicans? They're Confederates. So that gives you an example of how authoritarianism, as exemplified by Russia, is unable to govern effectively because it lacks the organization. Russia is a shithole country. So yeah, remember the day after January 6th? All the newspapers were all saying democracy attacked, mob storms US Capitol, intolerable attack on democracy, assault on democracy, disbelief and dismay grip Washington nation, insurrection, Trump mob storms Capitol, un-American, Capitol chaos, sad day for America, under siege. Yeah, dude, it was terrifying. Donald Trump and the Republican Confederates already tried to overthrow the government. They're gonna try again. They're gonna try again. But this time they're gonna use lawfare to disrupt the counting of the vote and the certification of the vote, and then try to leverage their control of the Supreme Court to award the presidency to Donald Trump. That's what they're gonna try to do. So Americans have to be ready for this. We have to be ready. They're gonna try to steal our election again, our government, our freedom. They want to steal our freedom and make us slaves the way they do it in Russia and China, where you don't have a say in government at all. They want to take away your freedoms. Get ready to defend our country. Because I have no doubt in my mind that Donald Trump will try to do another coup. And the Republicans. The Republicans, the Confederate Republicans, and Donald Trump will attempt to stage another coup and illegitimately seize power again. They will try again. I guarantee it. Get ready. What else do I got? Trump falls asleep at his own convention. He's just sleeping. Trump wears a fuck ton of makeup. That guy wears a ridiculous amount of makeup. Look at his perfect ear. Trump is an old man. Trump needs to retire. He needs to stop campaigning. He needs to give it up. He needs just to go on retirement. Look at Donald Trump gets a lap dance from Ivanka. Isn't that crazy? He's a pedophile, Donald Trump. Donald Trump is just old, dude. He's old. He's not there mentally. He needs to quit. Donald Trump is old. He just can't do it anymore. The office of the presidency is beyond him. His brain is melting. He can't keep anything straight. Oh, look! Man sentenced to 4 years for Minneapolis police station fire. The man must also pay $12 million in restitution for his role in lighting the 3rd Precinct headquarters on fire during the unrest after George Floyd's death. Oh, dude, the guy who set the police station on fire in Minneapolis got sentenced to 4 years in prison for his role. Let's keep reading about it.
A member of the Boogaloo Boys, a right-wing group intent on capitalizing on chaos and starting the next American Civil War, has also been charged with assisting in the damage to the precinct that night. Ivan Harrison Hunter, a 26-year-old from Boreen, Texas, is accused of shooting 13 rounds from an AK-47 style rifle into the precinct while people were inside the building. Hunter bragged on Facebook that, "I helped the community burn down that police station, and I didn't protest peacefully," according to the charges. Boogaloo Boys, you mean a white supremacist trying to start a war was the one responsible for burning the police station in Minneapolis? A white supremacist did that? Man, if you listen to the Republicans, they think that the black people did that, when really it was a white supremacist who did that. Really? Oh shit. Oh, wait a minute. I'm out of am I out of coffee? Let me go see if I have more. More coffee for the coffee gods. Oh, look out, my little kitty. Oh, I'm out of coffee. Dude, that sucks. I really need coffee. I need coffee. I need it. I demand it. It is amazing. It's fantastic. What else? Oh! Third Boogaloo Boy sentenced to life for court's security guard's murder. A third member of the Boogaloo Boys, a far-right anti-government extremist group, has been sentenced to life in prison for the 2020 murder of a federal court security officer in Oakland and the attempted murder of another, the U.S. Attorney for Northern California said Friday. Robert Alvin Justice, Jr., 34, was the wheelman in a drive-by shooting on May 29, 2020. So in other words, another Boogaloo Boy who tried to start a race war during the George Floyd protests murdered a bunch of, a security guard, and he was gonna blame it on the Black Lives Matter people. Why? So he could start a race war, because they're Boogaloo Boys. They're fascists. They don't believe in democracy. So I'm telling you that the George Floyd protests were fucking peaceful. They were peaceful. The violence that everyone likes to point to came from 1% of, if even that, of the protesters. The vast majority of protesters were peaceful. The ones who were not peaceful were either real small group or literal white supremacists trying to start a race war. The violence is coming from the white supremacists. Just like the person who tried to assassinate Donald Trump was a right-winger. The violence is coming from the right. Not from the left. Not from Black Lives Matter. Not from black people. Okay. I think that's enough for me. I have been streaming for 2.5 hours. Holy shit. That's a long time. Yeah, you know what? I see good things happening. With Kamala Harris as the nominee, suddenly Donald Trump looks weak and old. It doesn't mean he's not going to try to overthrow the election. It's just going to mean he's going to have a harder time doing it. He's still going to try to overthrow the election. It's just going to be harder now that Kamala Harris is there. So us American citizens have to be ready. And I don't know how you're going to defend American democracy, but I know it relates to voting. You have to vote. You have to find someone who's a non-voter and then convince them to vote.
because that's like the biggest group right now. If you want to talk about where the power lies, right now a lot of power lies in the people who don't vote. They just leave it on the they leave their power on the table, and that's like the biggest group. If you suddenly could snap your fingers and get all the non-voters to vote, it would be amazing. So much people power. There would be so much people power. But a lot of Americans leave their power on the table and don't even try to use it. And their power is the vote. So yeah, get non-voters to vote, and that's like, that would be massive. It'd be massive. Vote, vote, vote. Make sure you vote. Like, if voting didn't matter, they wouldn't spend a ridiculous amount of money and energy to get you to not vote, or to make your vote not count. They're trying real hard, or to put barriers in the way of you voting. They're trying real hard to stop you from using your power. You have to use your power. Okay, America. Until next time, fight for democracy. Defend democracy. Okay, next time. Peace. Pagokiro out. Stop.